Good morning, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode here of On the FinSide with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, as well as the Fansided Network and FinFanatic.com. I'm Brian Cat, NFL on Twitter. Paul is Fanatic_pick. We are 12 days away from the NFL draft, believe it or not. And we are continuing our positional breakdown here with the offensive tackle class. We'll do center and guard tomorrow and get into edge, cornerback, and safety here next week. So I'm probably going to feel a little bit differently about this tackle class than a lot of people out there, and probably my co-host as well. When you take a look here at this tackle group, it's an incredibly deep class, Paul. I mean, when you take a look at some of these players who were like the 10th, 11th, 12th rated guard, they would probably be the 5th, 6th, or 7th rated guard here last year. But the Dolphins drafted Austin Jackson in the first round to play left tackle last year. They drafted Robert Hunt to play right tackle the year before. But both of them, especially Robert Hunt, have the ability to possibly switch positions or move inside if need be. So, it's really debatable about whether or not this is even a need position for the Dolphins.
I don't feel it's a huge need. I think there's more needs along the interior, which there are some tackles you can kick inside. But really, the biggest need on the offensive line is at center. I know, we hear a lot of folks preach, no matter which side of the fence you're on, you hear a lot of folks preach patience with Tua. He was a rookie last year, all those things. And then you hear them in the same breath say, oh my God, we need to upgrade the offensive line. And, I like what I saw from Robert Hunt. I like what I saw from Solomon Kinley. I surprisingly liked what I saw from Austin Jackson, who I wasn't high on, just because I thought it was going to take him a little more time than it looks like it's going to reach any form of potential. And I thought he was okay last year. And given the fact that he had probably the most ground to go as far as the offensive tackle class, I don't have this huge, oh my God, we have to fill this need. And the problem I have with that, I know you said this is a deep class at offensive tackle. I feel kind of the opposite here. I feel like this is a really solid, great top end at offensive tackle yet again this year. And then after that, it just falls off this tremendous cliff into a hole.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people regard it as a deep class, but then again, if we're talking about moving some tackles to guards, then that thins out the class a whole heck of a lot. So
yeah, I think it's a tremendous guard class this year. Other than Deontay Brown's fat ass, but
hey, he went from 364 down to 344. So I mean,
that's because it took him so long to get up to the buffet. I mean,
yeah. I can't argue there. Hey, we'll talk about the guards another time, but I understand what you're saying there as far as the guard class and the tackle class. And so just looking at the offensive line for the Dolphins in general, it is my feeling that I think what everybody is saying here is, hey, we got to get weapons for two. We got to get weapons for two. We got to get wide receivers. We got to get running backs. I've always felt the opposite. I've always felt that if you allow Tua to consistently throw from a pocket that isn't muddy, then he is going to reach his potential. But if not, then I don't think he can do what some of these other – I don't think he can do what Pat Mahomes does. I don't think he can do what Josh Allen does, in that if he's got pressure, he's going to fight him off. He can fight him off with one hand and still deliver a 20-yard dime down the field. That's not who he is. He has to step into throws. And I don't think he's going to do that behind a C-plus offensive line.
The good thing is I think even where we stand right now, we're not going to have a C-plus offensive line. I think we're going to have, at the very least, a B this year. I mean, they've got some flexible pieces. They've got some depth as it stands right now. And, the weak link is center. I mean, that's the biggest thing for me. If Skura can regain his form, he was a steal. But I'm almost in Camp Dieter at this point, and that's not the best place to be as far as center goes.
Yeah, I wonder if the Dolphins like Dieter a little bit more than people think. Yeah, I think that's quite possible. Oops. All right. In Skura and Dieter right now on the surface are not good enough. I also think center is a position that it's easier to find players than offensive tackle. And yeah, you're right. When it comes to Robert Hunt, I like Robert Hunt, one of my favorite players on the team right now. And I'd like to keep him at right tackle. I mean, he was a right tackle at Louisiana, played well at right tackle last year when he got on the field. I hope he stays at that spot. And then you got Solomon Kinley at guard. Austin Jackson, I will say this, for as much as I didn't like the pick, he played better than I thought. I will say that. He's a very good athlete, great character. On paper, there's every reason in the world that he should improve, but still whiffs on a lot of blocks. He only gave up 4 sacks last year. PFF graded him as the 75th out of 79th offensive tackle for a reason, and the reason is because he gave up a lot of pressures and he gave up a lot of hurries. And just because you don't let up a sack doesn't mean that you still did your job or didn't ruin the play. And that's kind of where it is with Austin Jackson. But kind of to your point there too, C plus. Maybe if this is a C plus unit now, the Dolphins are counting on improvement from these 3 rookies to get them to a B.
Yeah, and I think they will. And make no mistake, if we can replace Eric Flowers as well, I'm in on it. But Flowers, which I know he's a guard, but it may be kicking Austin Jackson into left guard. It may be kicking Solomon Kinley to left guard, putting Jesse Davis at right guard, and just upgrading that center spot. But I don't have an issue with our tackles. I do think they improved just based on what I saw throughout the year last year, because Austin Jackson wasn't great, but I saw the improvement, and now he's going to actually have an off-season program he can participate in some way, shape, or form, and the Dolphins aren't sitting out as it stands right now.
Yeah, and he's only going to be 22 years old this year. So, I mean, this is somebody that was 20 years old when we drafted him. Yeah, in the first round, 18th overall last year. So, yeah, continued improvement is certainly expected out of Austin Jackson, as well as the rest of the offensive line. And they did improve still last year. I mean, you look at 2019, the Dolphins allowed 58 sacks, I believe. That was worse than the league. You look at last year, they allowed 34 sacks, which was kind of middle of the pack. Now, as far as run blocking is concerned, in 2019, they allowed 3.3 yards a carry, worse than the league by a wide margin. And then this past year, they improved to 3.9 yards per carry, but still, that was 29th in the NFL. So offensive line improvement still is needed here. And, I look at the board here and, Penei Sewell would be my choice at number 6 still, if he were there, but that's a battle it doesn't look like I'm going to win. I don't think you draft Austin Jackson in the first round and Robert Hunt in the second round in the same year without giving them the chance to improve. And so, I think you could kick one inside the guard, but I don't think that's actually going to happen. But to me, what stands apart with Penei Sewell, even at 18 years old, he was dominating people at Oregon in the final year he was playing. He was 18 for the first part of the year, 19 for the second part. Just 7 pressures allowed all year, no sacks at Oregon. The highest graded offensive tackle that PFF has ever had for a season. But I will throw you this here though. I'll admit that he had a great workout, but it wasn't the godlike workout that I was expecting. He wasn't 6'6". He was 6'4". He was 6'04", so not even 6'5", not even that much taller than Rayshawn Slater. 5'09", 40, 30 bench press reps, 28 vert, 109 broad jump. So, not a godlike workout, but still a great one. But enough for me to say, you know what, I'm fine taking and excited to take Penny or Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts 6th overall.
See, Sewell's already disappointing. He hasn't even played a snap yet. Jeez. No, yeah. I mean, Sewell is going to be very good at the next level. And I think he's a player that I don't think struggles, but even if he does, you can plug and play him pretty much anywhere on the line based on his play style, and he's going to do well. It's the guy that I really like is Christian Darasaw. The way that he gets that punch right off the snap, it's yes, Penei Sewell does, but Christian Darasaw, if you're looking to get somebody, is going to hit you in the chest, and he hits you, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, and Darasaw, with Sewell and Rashawn Slater out here last year in college football, both opted out, he was probably the best offensive tackle in the country, and he played against great competition. He played against Boogie Basham with at Wake Forest. He played against Chris Rumpf and for Duke. He played against Jalen Phillips and Quincy Roche there in Miami. He played against Xavier Thomas at Clemson. He played a great schedule and was one of the best offensive tackles in the country. He's a powerful guy. He's not athletically the greatest, but he has long arms and he's powerful. He is a better version, and I've seen this comparison a lot, a better version of Eric Flowers when he came out of Miami. I know Eric Flowers had a rough start to his career, moved inside to guard, became a better player. Darasaw has that type of flexibility as well. But you look at him at 34-inch arms and how much power that he brings to the table. Yeah, I mean, I think if the Dolphins go pass catcher at 6, I think he'd be great value at 18.
He would, but I can't bring myself to take an offensive tackle in the first round, and that's where this class hurts, because after the first round, I think Penei Sewell goes in the first round. Rayshawn Slater, who's probably the most technically gifted offensive tackle in the draft. Penei Sewell makes up for some of the technical issues with heart and effort. Rashawn Slater's the most classically solid technical offensive tackle in the draft. I think Tevin Jenkins goes in the first round. And then you're looking at maybe a Sam Cosby, but you'd have to pass on running back at 36 if you haven't taken one yet. Or Alex Leatherwood or Dylan Radins, who may go in the first round as well. But I'm not sold on Leatherwood, and I don't think Cosby is as big of an upgrade. This is where my problem is with this class, is I don't want to go offensive tackle in round 1. I'm somebody that you've heard me stump the table for a top 10 offensive tackle before. I look at this class, and because of the drop-off I see after most of the round 1 guys, I don't see a lot of the guys starting in round 2 as an upgrade over Austin Jackson or Robert Hunt. And that's where I look at this class, and I'm like, look, I get it. For me, interior line is going to be the one, which I know we're talking about tomorrow night, that upgrades this offensive line, and you can get after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, I think Penei Sewell is an elite prospect, and he would be still my choice at number 6. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. And where we disagree is that I see a lot of value in Tevin Jenkins, Rashawn Slater, and Christian Darasaw at 18. I would, if one of those players fell to 18, and Tevin Jenkins is the most likely to fall to 18, then I would take any of them all day and then kick the can down the road at running back and center. Hope that you can get one at 36 and 50 in the second round. And if that's iffy, then you trade up and ensure that you get a Creed Humphrey and a Javonte Williams in the second round, something along those lines. But Darasaw is my 4th rated offensive tackle. 2A and 2B are Tevin Jenkins and Rashawn Slater for me. I actually have Tevin Jenkins a half step above Rashawn Slater, and that's not a knock on Slater. I mean, Slater is one of the cleanest high floor players in this draft, technically sound, and when you look at the measurables, worked out in every drill better than Penei Sewell, which caught me by surprise big time. I mean, his arms were 33 inches instead of, a lot of people thought maybe smaller. Compared a lot to Jonah Williams, who is a early first rounder of the Bengals here in 2019. You can move him around the offensive line if it comes to that. He'll start out at tackle. So it would give the Dolphins options, and some people have even projected him as a center in this because of his ability to get to that second level in blocking. So, but Tevin Jenkins is the guy in this draft that I just can't get enough of when I watch him on tape. I mean, he's a right tackle at Oklahoma State. He played left tackle and right tackle at Oklahoma State. He, for the last 3 years, played more than 200 snaps at both left tackle and right tackle in 2018, 2019, and 2020. And a lot of people project him more at guard. I compare him to Brandon Scherff. I think he's that type of player. I think you're going to see a multiple-time Pro Bowler at the guard spot, but he can also play tackle. There's a strong top four there. So I would take one of them at 18, but I know we disagree on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's now the one I've got my eyes on here is Elijah Vera Tucker out of USC. Really dominant. I know he had short arms there at his workout and pro day, but he's got a lot of positional flexibility. So you would have the option, if you drafted an Elijah Vera Tucker, to put him possibly right next to his running mate from 2019 and plug him in at left guard and upgrade your left guard spot. Or he could kick Austin Jackson into left guard and take over the left tackle spot. He didn't allow a ton of pressures last year. I know, I think it was Kayvon Thibodeau, who's going to be a pretty high draft pick unless his ceiling falls out, that did pretty well against him. But outside of that, he was very solid at left tackle, and he may be there at 36, potentially, just given the fact that there are so many offensive tackles with first-round grades.
He's more likely to go in the first round, but you could probably have 35, 40 players that are more likely to go in the first round. So somebody's going to fall. Vera Tucker is somebody that I think will be a guard at the next level, but he did play left tackle this past year, taking over for Austin Jackson at USC. I think he'll be a guard, and from that point, I don't want the Dolphins, even at 36, to draft a guard to take over for Eric Flowers in a year. I don't think that's a great use of resources on that, but I do like Elijah Vera Tucker as a prospect. But that brings me to my next point here too is, I talked about the other day at off-ball linebacker. If you run slower than a 4.75, you're out. You're done. Forget it. I don't want to talk about it. We're finished. Same goes for offensive tackles with shorter than 33-inch arms. And there's only one in the NFL that plays at a high level that has that, and that's Braden Smith for the Colts. So, and you know what? I'll even make an exception here, Paul. I'll give you a 1/4 inch for free. 32 and 3/4 arms, I'm still good with. I'm a nice guy, okay? So, but anything other than that, 32 and 3/4 arms, done. You're out, you're a guard. Don't want to talk about it, blah, blah, blah. So, I don't know, but hey, you got to give me credit for giving a 1/4 inch on that, though.
I'm sorry, I fell asleep.
I'm big on 40 times for linebackers, big on arm length for the offensive tackle position. So given that, there are a few players that I kick inside to guard immediately. Jackson Carman from Clemson, Liam Eichenberg from Notre Dame, and Brady Christensen from BYU. I think that these are good prospects, but I don't think they're offensive tackles. Offensive tackle, you've got to play 70 snaps a game and play at a high level. And I don't see them being that type of player.
I would flirt with the idea, believe it or not, somebody I thought was going to come out last year and I was high on, that looks like a tackle, but I think end of the day, he might be better off kicking into that phone booth, and that's Alaric Jackson. yes, he manned the left tackle spot over Tristan Wirfs for some mysterious reason when Wirfs was at Iowa. But I think Alaric Jackson may actually be better in the phone booth than he is on the edge and having to chase players. One guy, though, that I want to stay far away from, and it's sad because he's athletically gifted, but he hasn't played football in 2 years, and it's kind of starting to look like a little bit of a desire issue, and that's Walker Little out of Stanford. It's the guy's got all the tools, but there's something going on there where it just feels like he doesn't enjoy it, and he had a terrible pro day.
Yeah, Walker Little is. I don't know if it's a desire thing, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, why didn't you go to the Senior Bowl? That's what I can't get over. It's like you've played one game of football since the end of the 2018 season. You would think you would want to play all the football that you can, and he didn't go. It was weird to me, but and PFF is really high on him, thinks that he should be like a late first round pick. I completely disagree, and I got to say, when I was actually able to dust off the archives and go back to 2018 and watch him, it was in black and white, I think, but I wasn't all that impressed. I thought he was stiff. I thought his punch wasn't all that great. I mean, he has the skills, he has the gifts for it, but now you have to get a player who's played one game of football for the last 3 years. And even when I watched his film, I thought he needed big time improvement from the player that I saw.
He did. It's just a shame. It really is. I'm just gonna sum it up and say I'm out on him. Outside of that, Tommy Doyle is just this massive athlete later on in the draft that I'm really intrigued to see what he can do at the next level. I mean, Miami of Ohio puts out another prospect that I end up taking in a lot of mock drafts. I mean, he's a little bit better than people give him credit for. I thought he'd be a lot higher on a lot of people's lists, especially given the human wasteland that there is between him and some of the top prospects.
Yeah, 6'8", 320 pounds, and ran under 5'2". I mean, those are good measurables. That's certainly going to get him drafted in the later rounds. And when you look at that, fifth round pick the Dolphins have and 2 7th rounders could fall into one of those spots there. And the Dolphins are going to need some depth on their offensive line too. I mean, even if you trust Austin Jackson at left tackle and Robert Hunt at right tackle, you're going to need some depth here as we go along. So just take a look at the class overall, just the pure tackles. I would sum it up as, Penny Sewell, where I am on him. I would take him 6th. I know we disagree on that. At 18, I would be happy to take either Rayshawn Slater, Christian Darasaw, or Tevin Jenkins. I know we disagree on that too. Second round is probably an area I wouldn't go offensive tackle unless somebody really fell, which I don't anticipate. But if a player like Alex Leatherwood falls to pick 80 for the Dolphins in the 3rd round, I would certainly be interested, because this is somebody that in Leatherwood, I feel like it feels like he's been in college football forever for a big time program. He fits the role. He's a solid player, but he's never taken that next step to greatness. He's kind of in some ways like Raekwon Davis at Alabama. But you're talking about somebody here who has played guard. He played guard in 2018 for Alabama. He kicked over in 2019 and 2020 at left tackle, as all SEC. And 85 and 3/8 inch wingspan on this guy. That's almost 5 inches bigger than Penei Sewell. So this is somebody that has the measurables to play the position too. So if he fell to pick 80, I would certainly be all over him.
I would certainly not. It's Leatherwood is a guy that I really, really wanted to love. Like we've been looking at him since last year's draft. He feels like the most spectacularly okay prospect in this draft. Like he seemed to have hit his ceiling, and he stays consistently there. But for the NFL level, it's just okay. Like if you,
I don't disagree with you,
yeah,
but I will say this: I think Alex Leatherwood will be a better left tackle than Austin Jackson. That's what it comes down to for me. I mean, it's always this. Oh, I don't want to be sitting here in a year with Austin Jackson saying, "Well, yeah, he's young, he's got potential." No, screw that. He is an NFL left tackle. He better be great this year, or he's wasting everybody's time.
you know what though? I'll take the okay with potential over the he's young, he's okay, and he is what he is. Like, and that's what we're gonna get with Leatherwood. At least it's he's young, he's okay, and I think he's gonna get better. The potential's there to going to like, all right, he's all right. Like, if there's a position like if there's two positions on the offensive line, I don't want to hear he's all right. It's left tackle and center, and I feel like if we take Leatherwood and we don't get a center, we're gonna be going, he's all right about our left tackle, and like, I wish he was all right about our center, and that's where my concern is.
I'll take he'll be middle of the pack, and he's not going to ruin drives over. Yeah, he's ruining drives, but he could be great one day. That's where I'm at the left tackle spot, and that's where I'm at on Austin Jackson right now.
I just don't feel like Leatherwood's gonna not ruin drives.
Okay.
I think if he plays against an okay pass rusher, he's going to do an okay serviceable job. If he faces off against, say, Buffalo's D-line, I think Leatherwood's going to have a really bad day. If he faces off against somebody like, a Bill Belichick coach team, I think he's going to have a really bad day. And I think the best we can expect from him is an okay day, and where you're going to have to draft him, I don't see the chance for improvement. And I think he and Austin Jackson are a lot closer at the NFL level already than a lot of people would think.
So 2 years from today, I'm going to say Alex Leatherwood is a better left tackle than Austin Jackson. I hope I'm wrong.
You're going to say Alex Leatherwood and be like, who? And you're going to go,
And maybe Leatherwood will kick inside the guard, and he has that flexibility. He started a full season at Alabama at the right guard spot. But so I think there's few ways to go with him. I think at absolute worst, he's a decent swing man. But I think he'll be a starting NFL left tackle. And that is more than worth the 80th pick in the draft for me. Who's not worth the 80th pick in the draft is Jaylen Mayfield, who I just never got it with. He's still in some mock drafts as a late first rounder, and I really don't understand it. And I saw in somebody's mock draft having him go to the Dolphins at pick 50, and I still wouldn't like that. I mean, this is somebody that I don't think played at a high level at Michigan. He's got a really narrow base. His hands are a mess. But everybody kept saying that was putting him in the first round. Well, he's got potential. He's got potential. He's basically the right tackle version of Austin Jackson this year. But then he goes to his pro day and he doesn't test out well athletically. 5'3", 40, 28.5 vert, 8-foot broad jump, 32 and 5/8 arm, 5'8". How do you say that?
5'8".
32, 5/8 arms. Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll say a half. We'll round it down to a half because he sucks. But I think he's going to kick inside the guard. I'm not even sure, if he's going to be good at that spot. So I can't even say I would take him in the third round.
See, one guy I would actually be intrigued at, and it's a huge upside guy, and I'd be willing to look at in the third round, or if Miami trades back a little bit in the fourth. An absolutely monstrous athlete who just needs to get his footwork a little bit better, is Spencer Brown out of Northern Iowa. 6'8", 311, ran a 4.88. The athletic potential is huge, and so is he. And really, I would think about him here because he's somebody that could step in and fill that role, and then maybe you can kick Austin Jackson in, and he's a steal a little bit later in the draft, in my opinion, because I think he just needs a little bit of time and experience, and I think he's going to start a lot sooner than most folks do.
Yeah, he reminds me a little bit of a Colton Miller, who the Raiders took in the first round a few years ago. Obviously, Miller was a higher rated prospect, but kind of the same philosophy where he has great movement skills for his size. I mean, 6'8", 311, like you said, great agility. And the Dolphins are known to draft offensive tackles with tools that you can mold together. I mean, that's why they drafted Austin Jackson in the first round last year. Spencer Brown, yeah, probably going to go somewhere between the Dolphins' third round pick, 80th overall, and fifth round, 156 overall. I expect the Dolphins to try to manufacture some picks there. He went down to Senior Bowl, and Brian Flores got a good look at him up front. Size, he didn't have a great week at the Senior Bowl, but he's a project. He moves really well for his size. So my question to you is, who would you rather take, Spencer Brown or Alex Leatherwood, if both were on the board?
Spencer Brown.
Oh, wow. Okay.
100%.
We're just not going to agree. I mean, I'm trying to find like points of agreement here. And
Penny Sewell is good.
The heck with you. I mean,
my thing that I like an offensive lineman with some attitude, and Alex Leatherwood's attitude even just seems okay. It's just like whereas you watch Spencer Brown play, and he's mauling people, and all I can think is if you get Solomon Kinley, Quinn Miners, Spencer Brown on the same line, that is going to be an infectious attitude that spreads across the offense. And and if you add to that somebody like Kyle Pitts that we all want Miami to draft at number 6, except for you. But it's if Pitts is tying up linebackers and Gesicki's tying up linebackers and safeties, now you're already improving your offensive line play by grabbing that effective tight end that ties up a couple of people in the interior as well. And then if you improve your slot position, you're going to be tying up even more in that interior, and that's less guys that the opposing defense can rush, and suddenly that's going to help improve your offensive line as well. It's people forget that the offensive line play is not just a product of the offensive line. It's the offense as a whole. And when you're running a boring-ass offense like Chan Gailey did last year, where it's a one-page playbook, your offensive line is going to look worse. So that's another reason I expect to see the current offensive line take that jump, and it's hard for me to look at a first-round offensive tackle.
And when you judge it from 2019 to 2020, you could argue that they did make a jump. But then again, there's nowhere to go but up from the bottom. And that's where they were in 2019 when Jamarcus Webb and Julian Davenport were starting games for you. So, yeah, I mean, what you said about the offensive line, I feel the exact opposite on too, is that I don't care about mauling. I don't care about upside. I want that player to play 70 snaps, and I want him to not mess up the offense. And the Dolphins have had too many players over the last 10 years who have messed up the offense. That's why somebody like Leatherwood is enticing to me. As far as upside is concerned, though, Dylan Raidens from North Dakota State, skinny but very, very strong, had a great Senior Bowl week where strength was not an issue for him. I think he's a better fit in a West Coast offense where you're blocking downhill more often, getting to the second level. That's not really the Dolphins style. So I don't expect them to target him, but he would be my clear offensive tackle 5 after Christian Darasaw. He's somebody that I think for a West Coast offense team could be a first round pick. A lot of guys here. And you talked about Sam Cosby. Cosby is a great athlete with a lot of experience. He doesn't have a lot of core strength. He's a great athlete, but can get pushed back and doesn't have a really wide base either. Ran a 501 40, 32.5-inch vertical. I think he'll get a chance here in the NFL. He's probably going to be a late first, early second rounder. I hope the Dolphins don't look at him though. So we've gone through a lot of players here, and finally, James Hudson from Cincinnati is an interesting player, and he's somebody that I've seen mocked like as high as the second round. He's started his career at Michigan as a defensive lineman and then transferred to Cincinnati, played left tackle. I think he's got a lot of upside. I really do. And somebody that I think too raw at 80, but if he ended up falling down to like the 5th round or 4th round and the Dolphins had a pick, he's somebody I'd probably consider there on day 3.
Yeah, and if you're looking to improve Miami's run blocking, really late in the draft, Cole Van Lanen out of Wisconsin, I think could come in, possibly kick inside. But I think he is going to be probably one of the better run blocking prospects in this class. If he makes that kick inside, he's going to be a lot better player.
Yeah, and to round out a few other players I'm out on, Josh Ball from Marshall. You know, he's a talented prospect, actually. Not as much as the top tier in this group, but was kicked out of Florida State for a domestic abuse. And look, I do think everybody deserves a second chance, and he has made the most of his second chances there at Marshall. But from an evaluation perspective, somebody I'm probably not very interested in, not going to deal with that for a swing tackle. And that this is the type of player that has blown up in Brian Flores' face with Isaiah Wilson, with Mark Walton. I'm just not interested. Adrian Ely from Oklahoma, I watched 3 games of him and I couldn't watch anymore. Just ugly film. Didn't look good in Senior Bowl week either. Has the tools, but slips off blocks way too easily. So I'm out on them too. Deontay Smith from East Carolina, 85-inch wingspan and very raw. Reminds me a lot, and I've seen this comparison of LaRaven Clark for the Colts. Somebody who's got the athleticism, has guard tackle versatility, has the size. So he's somebody, again, if fall to the 5th round, 6th round, 7th round, maybe somebody I would consider here.
Yeah, sorry, I'm laughing at Scummy in the chat. It kills me. So, Kat, real quick, I know we've covered a lot of offensive tackles here. Shake was just asking, how many UDFAs, the undrafted free agents, do you think are going to make the team this year? I've got my own in my head, but I'm curious what you think.
2.
That's not far off from me. It's Greer does have a way of turning over a stone and finding a player where no one thinks there is one. But this is a much improved roster from last year, so it's going to be a little bit harder for those undrafted free agents to come in the door. If Miami whiffs on Miners and Humphrey and Myers, I could see Greer just unearthing some small school center prospect that comes in and plays really well and takes over the center position eventually. Maybe a linebacker, probably a special teamer. I don't see a wide receiver coming in, making the team from the undrafteds. I don't see a tight end coming in making the team from the undrafteds unless maybe Yeboah goes undrafted and they miss on Pitts. And yeah, maybe a corner. Like it's tough. It's tough to look at a position that you think an undrafted could make this team right now.
Yeah, it is a lot harder than in previous years. There's no doubt about that. And I'm looking at a few from the chat here too. And yeah, I mean, I pretty much disagree with everybody, to be honest with you. Yeah, give Austin Jackson another year. Yeah, I think we're going to say that. I think we're going to be saying that for 3 years. Ignatius Chi says Colton Miller sucks. I think $17 million a year would disagree with that. I love all you. Don't get me wrong, but we're just not going to see eye to eye on this tackle class, and I'm not going to see eye to eye with my co-host either. So I think we're going to
click that like button if you want Kat to ignore the chat at this point.
Center guard, I think we're going to agree with a little bit more tomorrow. I think we're a little bit more on the same page. But hey, I was looking forward to bringing it today, and I'm glad that we did here. So anything else jump out for you here before? Why don't you give us a motivational close here? So we leave on a good note.
Guys, make sure you guys make sure you guys subscribe, turn your notifications on. We're going to have a big old draft party on here. We've still got plenty of positions to go through. We've got, I think, a mock draft coming up again before we hit the draft. We've got a ton of content coming your way. And if you get a chance, leave us a review out on iTunes. It's only helpful for us. And we appreciate you. Don't let Kat tell you otherwise. We appreciate you.
Yes, I absolutely. I love our guests and everybody chatting in. And hey, look, I've been wrong in the past. I didn't want to draft Mike Gesicki or Jerome Baker. So bring it. I mean, this is why the draft is fun, because it's all going to play out here in the next year or two, and you can come back and tell me I'm wrong. I mean, my wife tells me I'm wrong all the time, so feel free to bring it too. So that's going to do it for our.
Sure is.
What?
I hope she's not watching, Kat. I hope she's not watching.
My wife tells me I'm wrong all. That's bad on me. It's not bad on my wife. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, just wait.
I don't know. I don't think you understand what I said.
I do. But I don't think so. This is the age thing here speaking. Whether she tells you you're wrong all the time or not, you don't really want to point that one out. I'm just just a little bit of advice.
Okay. I don't know what that means.
You're wrong for pointing out that she points out that you're wrong all the time.
Oh, okay.
Trust me.
All right. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Anyway, yes.
All right. So anyway,
this is the Dolphins and Relationships podcast.
I would still take Penny Sewell at 6, and I would still take an offensive lineman at 18 if one of those guys fell. So that's going to do it for our breakdown of the offensive tackle class here. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets here. Also follow us on the FanSided Network and finfanatic.com. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the fin side.